former New Jersey Governor Christie sat down with me for an exclusive interview, his first since dropping out of the presidential race. He was blunt about Donald Trump, Nikki Haley's chances, and the future of the Republican Party that Ronald Reagan would not recognize. So you've had a couple weeks to reflect on this run for president. What do you make of it?
I mean, I think that the biggest frustration for me is that we have so many people in our party who complain about Donald Trump, but none of them are willing to do the hard work that needs to be done to rid our party and our country.
Privately.
Right. Yeah. But they're unwilling to do any of the hard work that's necessary to rid our party and our country of Donald Trump. But, you know, to me, George, the entire primary was over the night of the first debate.
Why?
Because when they ask you, would you still support him if he was a convicted felon? And 6 of the 8 people raised their hands on that stage. What it says to the largest debate audience we were ever going to have during the primary is his conduct is normal. 6 of these 8 candidates who are running against him say it's okay. So how do you expect voters to think it's not okay?
But what does it say about the Republican Party right now that you get booed when you say you wouldn't vote for a convicted felon to be president of the United States?
It says that none of the people in leadership have been willing to do the hard work to push back against Donald Trump's lies.
Your critics say it took you too long to get there.
Well, as all of them lag far, far behind me.
Nikki Haley's still running in South Carolina. Does she have any chance?
I mean, hard for me to say. It doesn't look like it. I mean, you know, the polling, interestingly, has been pretty accurate this year. New Hampshire ended pretty much the way we had polled we thought it would end.
Which is why you got out?
To me, once I became convinced I couldn't beat him in New Hampshire, it was time to get out.
Then you had that hot mic moment.
She's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
What was going on there?
I'll tell you, George, it was a complete mistake. But the way I found out is actually the funniest part of the story. I had my phone on vibrate, but the only person whose ringtone burst through when I have it on vibrate is my son, Andrew. And the phone rang, and I picked it up, and I said, I'm getting ready to go out. He goes, hot mic, hot mic, hot mic. He was in the Dominican Republic watching on the live stream, and that's how I found out that the mic was hot.
Did you hear from Nikki Haley?
I did the next day. Yep. Yeah, it was a 45-second conversation. She told me, I know it's a personal decision to get in a race, and it's a tough decision to get out. I heard everything you said last night, including the hot mic. And I said, uh-huh. And she said, well, good luck. And I said, good luck to you.
So she didn't ask for an apology, you didn't give one?
No, there's no apology warranted.
Can you imagine endorsing her a little bit down the road?
No, not based on what she said. And look, imagine the position I'd be in if I endorsed someone who then turned around and endorsed Donald Trump. I'm not going to be put in that spot again, George. I made a decision in 2016, the only time in my political career, where I endorsed someone purely for political reasons, even though I had some misgivings. And that's when I endorsed Donald Trump. And it was the biggest mistake I made in my political career. And I'm just not going to repeat that mistake for anybody.
Republicans, if Donald Trump won, would probably control the Senate. We don't know that they would control the House. We could be back in automatic impeachment land a week into the presidency.
And look, I think if the Senate had done their job in January of 2021 and convicted him, which I believe he'll be convicted by a jury of his peers for that conduct.
If it ever gets to trial.
I think it will. And my guess is that he will be, more likely than not, a convicted felon when he gets on the stage at the nominating convention in mid-July in Milwaukee.
You have a book coming out today. What would Reagan do? Would he recognize the Republican Party today?
He would not. He would be dumbfounded by it. He would be absolutely perplexed. I think Reagan wouldn't have understood it, but he would have stood up, I think, and that's part of the reason I wrote the book.
So who do you vote for in the New Jersey primary in June?
I mean, my guess is that there won't be anybody else on the ballot to vote for other than Donald Trump by June. No, I would never write myself in. But yeah, I probably would just skip that part. I mean, look, the one thing I could tell you for sure is I don't know what I'm going to do in November, but I'm not voting for Donald Trump under any circumstances.
But isn't any vote that's not for Joe Biden, assuming it's the two of them and a handful of third-party candidates, isn't any vote that's not for Joe Biden to vote for Donald Trump?
Well, we could get into all the technicalities, and you understand.
I think it's pretty clear that it is.
No, but you get at this. You know this as well as I do. In my state, my vote is not going to matter a lick. Okay, I don't know who the full field's going to be yet, and there might be a no labels candidate who I might
but no
look at
labels
and say,
is going to drain more from Joe Biden than Donald Trump, isn't it?
I think it depends on who they nominate. I think it depends on who they nominate. If they nominate a strong Republican, it might not be the case.
If they asked you?
They have not asked me, no.
But if they did?
Oh, I don't know. There'd be a long conversation between me and Mary Pat, I can guarantee you that.
But you haven't closed the door to it.
Well, what I've said in the past is that I'd have to see a path for anybody, not just me, but I think anybody who would accept that would need to see a path to 270 electoral votes. You know, if there's ever a time in our lifetime when a third-party candidate could make a difference, I think it's now. The question, though, is what kind of difference?
So play out as a strategist. If you're running the campaign now to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president in 2024, what do you do?
Replace Joe Biden. I just think that Joe Biden is probably the only major Democrat who Donald Trump could beat. And I think that if President...
And Donald Trump may be the only Republican who Joe Biden can beat.
Exactly right. And, you know, I've known Joe Biden for 40 years. I like President Biden personally, always have. But, you know, past his sell-by date. It's just time.
His argument is he did it once, he did it again, and the economy's improving on my watch.
He's a different guy, though, George. Like, Joe Biden could sell it better in 2020 than he's able to in 2024. And that is just a product of age. And this is not me making some clinical diagnosis. I'm making a political diagnosis that the guy isn't as good as he was 4 years ago.
Bottom line, you think you'll succeed in your mission to make sure Donald Trump is not president again?
I don't know, George, but it won't be for lack of trying. I can guarantee you that.
So there's been a lot of news.